Hey guys, Thomas Cicilli Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Krampus Origins. Figured with it approaching Christmas, it would be a good movie to review, and then I saw it, and then I was like, oh, this isn't good at all. Uh, I actually liked the first Krampus movie. I don't know if that's related to this in any way, shape, or form, but nonetheless. This movie starts in 1918 with some text telling us about this army moving in, this American army moving in on this Russian army. We see them do this. One of the Russian men are trying to summon something from a book, but the team moves in and kills the guy who is summoning something. And one of the guys grabs the book and it shows that the guy was reading the book, but the book is taken by one of the other guys, and eventually, after storing it away and getting tired, they are immediately surrounded, and three of them are killed. So a few weeks pass, and we cut to a man named Jimmy escorting a lady named Josephine. And then we cut to Ophelia, a child of this little church. And she's trying to practice alchemy with Hernia. I think that's her name. And the two of them get blamed for practicing alchemy, and the nun gives them a talking to. So it cuts to these two young boys, one of them looking at erotica, and then it cuts to another character named Lena, who's cleaning up some of the mess for a few of these other kids. So as it would turn out, Josephine is going to this church, where she's introduced to Mary the nun. So then it cuts to the children eating, and one of the boys named Jack is pretty much a jerk and a bad flirt to the two girls I mentioned earlier, Ophelia and Hernia. And then he goes to grab Bram, who has a stuttering issue, and luckily just in time the nun intervenes. So Josephine goes to find the father, the priest father, who is currently drunk. So Lena is asking. It cuts to like the late night, and she's sneaking around, and the two boys are sneaking around, and they tell each other not to tell each other secrets, and then the two of them proceed to try to watch Josephine undress, but the nun catches the two of them and they move along. So Josephine is then woken up for Mass, and the nun takes over for the Mass from the father, who is still drunk at this point, or hungover at the very most. So, Josephine leaves the room getting a notification, and then she sees an army man with a letter and a whole bunch of stuff to indicate that her husband has passed away, and he does pass that news along to one of the other individuals. So, inside his bag, we saw that in the beginning, was that book. And Ida, one of the other girls, one of the ones that told about the situation that was going on, takes the book. Meanwhile, Lena is cooking, and we get some more talking, and I think we're about like halfway through the movie and still no Krampus. So, Josephine's getting some tea, And the priest father seems to be suddenly fine now. I guess he just suddenly got over his hangover. And then Ida chills with one of the other bully kids, Billy, and they are reading the book, or she is primarily trying to read the book. So she follows him outside, and then she is suddenly dragged into the darkness, which is really not really a darkness, it's more of a weird yellow light. So, someone knocks at the door, and we are introduced to another boy who just happens to come into the night. And the stray kid follows the nun into the eating room. So, Josephine is trying to call for a train to see if she can get to the location and deal with all that stuff. Meanwhile, Lena is finally reading about Krampus. And then we see the boy standing in front of the nun. In front of Josephine, I should say. Oh no, it is the nun. Sorry. Anyway, so eventually he says that his name is Nicholas. Convenient. So Lena wants the nun to help her out or something. And then she eventually passes out from seeing the boy, the Nicholas boy. So Josephine begs for work, as to not just sit around and wait for something to happen, while Nicholas bumps into Josephine and asks her some very special questions that she doesn't dare just question back. She gets too upset, apparently, for that. Anyways, Ophelia then grabs a lookout as she is trying to look for some treatment to help Lena out. So she is there with her friend Hernia and Brim. The three of them are trying to take care of that, and then the two of them, Brim and her, go to look for some rats. So, the father and Jimmy hang out, and Jimmy heads out to go look for the Ida girl, while Nicholas is just waiting around, chilling. And then Ophelia, Brim, and her Henrietta, that's what her name was. God, I kept mistyping her name in my notes. Henrietta. Trying to cure Lena, but it doesn't appear to be working. So, the nuns are starting to look around, or one of them is starting to look around, and the bullies go after Nicholas. And the nun finds the three of them doing their little practice with Lena, who abruptly wakes up after she leaves, and then warns the other three that Krampus has now finally arrived in the movie. So the nun heads over to the bully's room and then sees that nothing's really going on. Noises are heard though, and Lena leads the other three into a chant of getting this blue ore to appear to protect them from Krampus, who is looking on. So Josephine suddenly has a vision of her husband returning, and he manages to warn her and then gives her this necklace thing that's supposed to protect her. So she starts to head out and sees that the nuns have been killed, Jimmy has been killed off screen. Everyone, mostly the adults, have been killed off screen. But she does manage to find the four kids chanting. But the house begins to shake. She's pressed outside and the door gets locked. So, one of them tries to touch the doorknob but is currently burning. And lo and behold, Nicholas turns into Krampus. Krampus powers himself up in front of Josephine, and then the two of them just kind of talk for a while, back and forth. It's a bit of a weird, bizarre scene, to say the very least. But the chanters began a new chant to cool down the door. And it was almost as if Krampus was waiting for the kids to zap them or burn them or do other stuff to them. So he's doing that, and Lena, Josephine, Bram, and Ophelia are the last ones outside. They manage to leave the church. But Krampus isn't done. He starts to suck up the kids as well. So he tries to do it to Josephine, but fails, because apparently the necklace is some sort of overpowered necklace thing. So she reads the book, and Krampus is then sucked into the book. And all the kids magically return, and they decide, the three of them, the being her, Ophelia, and Bram, all bury the book instead of, I don't know, burning it or doing something that would hopefully have some sort of more permanent loss of the book. Nonetheless, the bullies thank Bram for doing all that, and he somehow managed to lose his stutter somewhere along the movie. And Josephine gives Ophelia the amulet, and then they part ways, or they kind of head off together, I guess. And that was Krampus Origins. Again, I don't know if this is related to the movie just called Krampus. I remember that movie being surprisingly pretty damn good, and then there was a sequel that was also surprisingly pretty good, and then this one was pretty garbage. It unfortunately kind of falls apart. Not putting the effects aside and just saying what the whole story is about, there isn't a whole lot of Krampus here to begin with. More than half of the movie is setting up these pretty generic characters, just sort of getting ready to learn stuff, and it takes more than halfway up until the movie until one of the girls even finds the book and then actually gets Krampus involved. And Krampus, I will say, does not look like how he does in this poster. He does not have those demon horns. So the poster is a little bit betraying as well. I will say that much as in regards to that. Nonetheless, I do feel like this movie is kind of just blah. I'd give it a 3 out of 10. Definitely just very weak. Very not interesting. And that is my review of Krampus Origins. And if you enjoyed it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out that link in the description to head you over to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.